White House says this is old news. They deny the affair. We're joined now by Ronan Farrow of The New Yorker. Ronan, thanks for coming back again this morning. So Wall Street Journal, I remember, just a couple days before the election, wrote about the National Enquirer paying $150,000 for this story. But you have a lot of brand new stuff here, including those handwritten notes.
Right. So this is new on a couple of levels. One is the underlying chronicle of the affair reveals a lot of important patterns that we're now seeing in the multiple accounts of either consensual affairs or alleged non-consensual activity with Trump.
Right. One of the things we know, for example, just recently we've seen this payment, $130,000 to Stormy.
So this is the other, I think, systemic thing revealed by the account of this story from Karen McDougal. She feels that she was trapped into an exploitative contract that bound her to silence, and that's something she finds very frustrating.
Let's talk about this pattern we see here and what exactly the National Enquirer did. It's called catch and kill. You pay for the rights to a story, then you don't run the story. They say it was because they didn't find the story credible.
Correct. And 6 former AMI employees tell me in this story that that's not the case, that this was a routine activity by David Pecker, the head of the National Enquirer, who has publicly pledged his loyalty to Trump, and that, this is the interesting and potentially troubling dimension, George. These, dirty stories about high-profile individuals would be used as leverage over those individuals. Obviously, national security implications here when that happens to be the president.
So you make it sound like the president's vulnerable to blackmail from the National Enquirer because they did him this favor?
That we don't use the word blackmail, but multiple AMI employees use terms like leverage, influence.
So is this the kind of thing that David Pecker, National Enquirer, would do without ever telling Trump or without getting permission, him not directing it?
Well, that's the question. I mean, our reporting certainly suggests that, again, according to those AMI insiders, there was knowledge of this loyalty to Trump and that this flowed from that. We do not report that Trump ordered this.
Now, McDougal still cannot talk about the affair.
So this is an interesting question. She says she cannot. AMI, in a comment, we give them a very full opportunity to give their perspective in this story, as we always do, says, actually now we feel she can speak in response to legitimate journalistic inquiries. She and her representatives feel that that is not the case, looking at the letter of the contracts.
So tell us about this 8-page document. Why was it created? How did you get it?
She wrote a detailed chronicle of this affair in the course of selling this story. Now, she didn't run out and pitch this story herself, by her account.
This is back in 2016, summer of 2016.
Correct. She talks about having watched television with a friend she was staying with, and that friend urged her to write down the story, potentially to sell it. And that, I think, in her view, caught her unawares. She was sort of backed into a situation where she feared the story was going to leak, and she signed this deal after pitching it in several places. She, I think, readily admits that she consented to that deal, but feels now the heavy burden of silence.
And you're saying in recent days and weeks, the National Enquirer has come back again with more offers?
In the wake of the Stormy Daniels story, these revelations about other infidelity on the part of Trump, allegedly, there has been an uptick in contact between AMI, this media company, and Karen McDougal. They did have intermittent contact with her over the past year, but according to multiple sources and documents that we have, that contact has sharply increased, and as recently as several days ago, they were aggressively seeking to have her sign new contracts.
What new does this tell us about President Trump?
That in this country, the most powerful and wealthy men can command an elaborate system to silence people with stories about them that they don't want out in the public. And obviously, for a sitting president to be the beneficiary of such a system is a pretty unprecedented thing.
We now know this has happened with Stormy Daniels to some degree, some kind of a payment. Now, Karen McDougal, think it's the last one?
I only comment on reporting we've put out.
Ronan Farrow, thanks very much.
Thank you,
We'll
George.
be right back.